Caring Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QandReview. That is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@QandReview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
Evening Times, April 24. Opinion. Paul Sweeney says, "The resilience of the Ukrainian people is remarkable." Taking a convoy of ambulances to Ukraine showed me that we must remain steadfast in our support. It has been over 3 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. 3 years of needless bloodshed, pain and destruction, brought about by Vladimir Putin's imperial delusions. Russia's so-called special military operation, launched on February 2022, was meant to last a matter of days, but the remarkable resolve of the Ukrainian people and the unwavering supply of humanitarian and military aid from democratic nations sees Ukraine continuing to fight relentlessly to preserve its sovereignty. With Parliament in recess for Easter, I joined a cross-party group of MSPs and MPs and drove in a convoy of old NHS ambulances filled to the brim with humanitarian aid from London to the Ukrainian city of Lviv. Organised by the Mighty Convoy Organisation, 10 of us set off, driving 5 ambulances in 3-hour shifts through day and night across 7 countries to Ukraine. The journey took a total of 36 gruelling hours, with regular pit stops at service stations for a caffeine and Haribo boost to help us along the way. Upon crossing the Polish border with Ukraine, it was immediately obvious that this was a country grappling with all-out war and its surreal impact on everyday life. Although we were still many hours from the front lines, each billboard that in Glasgow might display an advertisement for Iron Brew or a new car warned of Russian misinformation or encouraged young people to join the army of drone operators. As we made our way through rural Ukraine, on roads not dissimilar to any in the Scottish countryside, in each village we passed, we were struck by the hundreds of flags fluttering in the breeze next to the graves of soldiers who never made it back. A further reminder of the sheer scale of the death toll faced by every community across this vast country. Our convoy eventually arrived at the Christian Medical Association of Ukraine, HQ, in central Lviv. We were met by the cheerful volunteers and staff who will ensure that the ambulances and medical supplies reach the front line to sustain the Ukrainian armed forces. Lviv's old town was eerie, with very few people walking the elegant Baroque streets, despite the UNESCO World Heritage Site resembling a typical European city break destination like Prague or Krakow. Martial law is in full force, meaning there is a curfew whereby citizens must be in their home before midnight, and alcohol cannot be sold in restaurants and bars after 10 p.m. The following day we went to visit the Unbroken Initiative, at St. Panteleimon Hospital, established by the city as the country's first national rehabilitation centre, providing comprehensive surgical treatment, prosthetics, and mental health support for war-affected individuals. While we toured the cutting-edge facility, a broadcast rings out throughout the hospital and across the country, signalling the start of the daily minute silence, which takes place at 9 a.m. and offers people an opportunity to remember those that have been killed in the war. The full horror of the war hit home as we met with soldiers and civilians alike who had lost limbs and suffered other life-changing injuries. We then went to Lviv Town Hall to meet the mayor, Andrei Sadovey, who guided us through a presentation about life in Lviv during the war and their amazing resilience in the face of frequent bomb damage and mass casualties. He told us that the local authority allocates a staggering 20% of its budget, the equivalent of Glasgow's entire council tax income, to weaponry that is sent to the front line. After departing the mayor's office, we went to see one of the hundreds of drone factories in Ukraine. The last 3 years has seen a seismic change in the way the war is being fought, with one-way attack drones replacing artillery as the battlefield weapon of choice, now responsible for up to 80% of daily combat losses on both sides. The factory we visited resembled a high school technical workshop, with technicians soldiering away to meet the increasing demand of the Ukrainian armed forces, who buy 10,000 of these drones from the small factory every month alone. Our final stop before heading back to the Polish border was a military training base for combat medics. Here we handed over one of the NHS ambulances to the brigade commander. The ambulance is now based at a field hospital on the front line. Many moments on this journey inspired me, but none more so than witnessing the brigade commander's emotion as we handed over the keys to the ambulances. In the grand scheme of things, this was a small donation, but Ukrainians are so appreciative of what Britain is doing to support them after 3 barbaric years of an all-out invasion and the partial occupation of their country. He told us about an attack on the base in which over 30 soldiers died. He said that the only way they could now prevent Russian rockets raining down on them was with air defence missiles provided by Britain. While the support of the United States has faltered since January, Europe must not waver in its support for Ukraine and its perseverance in the face of tyranny. The resilience of the Ukraine people is remarkable, but they cannot hold back Russia's meat grinder alone. We must continue to support them with military equipment and humanitarian aid so that they can recover their occupied territory and secure peace on their terms. I have now realised that the front line of European democracy is only 3 tanks of diesel away from us. We all have a stake in their success, says Paul Sweeney.
From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of April 2025. From the news section, Big Orange Walk to take place in Glasgow this weekend. Report by political correspondent Stuart Patterson. The first Big Orange Walk through the city centre this year will take place tomorrow as the Ladies Orange Association of Scotland takes to the streets. Around 500 are expected in the parade on Sunday. The ladies, accompanied by orange bands, will set off from Holland Street in the city centre at 1:15 p.m. Traffic restrictions will be in place to allow the parade to pass. The parade will head east on West Regent Street, into Blythewood Square, and down West George Street before passing through Nelson Mandela Place and continuing on West George Street. The marchers will head along into George Square on the north side, where they will pause for a wreath to be laid before they continue on George Street before turning into High Street and up to Castle Street before reaching Cathedral Square. The bands will continue and then disperse at John Knox Street/Wishart Street. It is the first big orange parade in the city centre this year, and will be the first when George Square will be cordoned off to allow work to start in its redevelopment. It means that those taking part will not be able to lay their wreath at the cenotaph as normal, as it will be behind the hoardings that are currently being erected. The statues in the square are being removed for restoration before being put back in place once the works are complete. The Walter Scott Monument and the cenotaph will remain in the square throughout and have any restoration works carried out. In May, the statues in the square will begin to be removed for restoration and put into storage. Contractors are due to start work in June once they have been appointed next month. The work on the square is expected to take more than a year, and George Square will reopen to the public in the second half of 2026. And that article was written by Stuart Patterson and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of April, from the news section. Exclusive. Glasgow City Council spends £13 million on agency staff. This article is an exclusive written by Amanda Keenan. A cash-strapped council has spent £13 million propping up its cleansing services across Glasgow over the last 8 years. A Freedom of Information request has revealed the eye-watering sum paid to private firms to supply agency staff to be deployed by the local authority. The approach has been criticised by a city councillor. However, council bosses insist they only turn to agency staff to maintain service levels and cover retirals, dismissals and the short-term filling of new posts. Councillor Paul Carey, BEM, says using the agency staff has cost the public purse over a prolonged period of time. He said, "Once again we have millions of pounds being spent on agency workers. Even with the number of jobs the council is now recruiting within its upcoming budget, all we are doing is getting back in a level and into a position where we can keep the city at an acceptable standard." The biggest spend came in 2022-23 when £2.9 million was committed to additional cleansing support, closely followed by £2.5 million the following year. The smallest sum was £670,000 in 2018-19. Councillor Carey added, "It is awful that bosses went down the road of bolstering services through an agency route because these people don't get holidays, sick pay or a pension for at least 3 months. They're effectively like workers on 0 hours contracts, and it is easy to cut them if required. This is a city that has a long-standing rodent problem, one that few would argue has become dirtier and blighted by litter over the years. It is my position that this has been a flawed approach to tackling the widespread refuse issues that have plagued Glasgow now for far too long. The data also shows that the council splashed out just over £3 million between 2017 and 2024, bringing in agency workers to bolster its waste disposal services." Mr Carey, who is the elected member for Drumchapel and Annisland, added, "The only people who have won out of this combined approach are the private companies who charge the public purse a fortune for services. The council has allocated cash within its upcoming budget, which will go towards recruiting 200 new staff across its street cleansing and parks operations. It said it also plans to employ additional pest controllers, waste enforcement officers and road staff as it looks to clean up the city. A spokesperson said, "Agency staff are only ever brought in when there is no other way to cover an absence or vacancy within our teams. The use of agency staff can therefore play a vital role in delivering essential services for Glasgow's residents. When agency staff cover absence, there is a significant cost to the council, and we do everything possible to minimise absence as this will reduce the cost to the council. Agency staff who work with the council for a sufficient period of time will access benefits such as sick pay and paid leave, which are available to permanent staff, and there is always a pathway to permanent employment for agency staff." And that article was an exclusive by Amanda Keenan. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of April 2025. From the news section, Omani soldier caught in pedo sting at pipe championships. Report by Grant McCabe. An Omani soldier was caught in a pedo sting when he competed in the World Pipe Band Championships. Hamdan Al-Kamali, 47, believed he was chatting online to a 12-year-old girl between July and August 2024. Instead, he was chatting to an adult from a vigilante group posing as a child decoy. Al-Kamali claimed he would have sex with her and that he knew what he was doing was against the law. Al-Kamali, who represented the Omani Army Band, was snared by the vigilante group in Glasgow Green where the championships were being held. The incident resulted in negotiations to bring first offender Al-Kamali back to Scotland from Oman to face justice. Al-Kamali pleaded guilty yesterday, April 25th, at Glasgow Sheriff Court to sending written communication to a person he believed to be a child. He was fined £1,275 by Sheriff Matthew Jackson KC, who also put him in the sex offenders register. The sheriff said, "If you were a British national, I would have called for a background report to find out why you committed this crime. I'm satisfied in these unusual circumstances that your government and military will work to ensure that you will undergo the same sort of counselling and education that you would have in this country. Do not think that you are getting away with this just because you are a foreign national. I expect your government will give a very full undertaking to see that you get the counselling you require." The court heard earlier that Al-Kamali first contacted the decoy on social media chatting application Say Hi on July 29th. Al-Kamali was told by the decoy that she was 12 years old and he replied, "Age doesn't matter, it's just a number." The conversation continued on WhatsApp where Al-Kamali turned to chat sexual. Al-Kamali also spoke about meeting the girl and showering together in the bathroom. He made references to keeping their conversations private. Prosecutor Jenny Reid said, he told her that he was scared about breaking the law. He told her that in this country the law prohibits him being with a minor or young girl. The vigilante group decided to confront Al-Kamali at Glasgow Green on August 17th. Miss Reid added, this was due to information from Al-Kamali that he would be there to take part in the pipe band championships. Al-Kamali told the vigilante group that he was speaking to her and was later arrested by police. John Scully KC, defending, told the court that a representative of the Omani military was present in court. The advocate said, Mr Al-Kamali was in the UK competing in the championships for the Omani Armed Forces. He was allowed to return to Oman and undertakings were taken by the government of Oman that he would return to the UK for court proceedings, which he has cooperated with. He has brought shame and embarrassment and he is aware that he has let his family down, as well as the military, for which he expresses remorse. The Omani military and government are aware of the charges and they have committed to explore the issues arising from this case. The hearing was also told that the sheriff had received papers from the Ministry of Defence as well as the Sultan of Oman before the case called in court. And that article was written by Grant McCabe and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of April 2025, from the news section. Staff left shaken after being threatened during robbery in Linwood. The report by Nicole Mitchell. Staff have been left shaken after they were threatened during a robbery in Linwood. At around 10 p.m. last night, April 25th, a man entered a business premises on the town's Bridge Street and threatened staff. He then made off with a three-figure sum of money. No one was injured during the incident, but police say staff were shaken. Officers are now appealing for anyone who saw the man to come forward. Detective Constable Victoria Thorburn, Paisley CID, said, fortunately, no one was injured, and extensive inquiries are being carried out to trace this man, including reviewing CCTV. We are asking anyone who saw this man, or anyone acting suspiciously around the time of this incident, to get in touch. In particular, if you are driving in the area and have any dashcam that could assist, then contact us. Likewise, if you have private CCTV that could identify the suspect or where he went. The suspect is described as being around 5 foot 8 inches tall, with an average build and ginger facial hair. He was wearing dark clothing at the time. Anyone with information is asked to contact Police Scotland on 101, quoting the incident number 4094 of April 25th. Crime Stoppers can also be contacted anonymously on 0800 555 111. That article was written by Nicole Mitchell. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of April 2025, from the news section. Tribute paid to kind Dumbarton shopkeeper after 40 years. Report by Emily Moore. Tributes have been paid to a Dumbarton shopkeeper who has died after running a local newsagent for 40 years. Rajit Singh Dehami, affectionately known as Jim by his customers, dedicated over 4 decades of his life to Jim's News on Glasgow Road before he sadly passed away at the age of 72 on March the 11th. Born in Punjab, India in 1953, Ranjit moved to Glasgow at the age of 15, where he faced learning a new language and culture. Despite knowing little English, Ranjit's son, Amrit, said he excelled academically, achieving A grades in higher physics and mathematics. From there, he went on to earn a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Heriot Watt University in Edinburgh. After struggling to secure a job, Ranjit and his wife, Rajinder, decided to open their own business, Jim's News, on the corner of Glasgow Road and Victoria Street. Amrit said, Ranjit's dream was to offer his children the opportunities he never had. They were determined to ensure that their children would have access to higher education and become professionals in their own right. For over 40 years, Ranjit worked tirelessly at his newsagents, writing at 5 a.m. every day, 7 days a week. His commitment to customers was unwavering. He knew their newspaper orders by heart and always made sure no one went without. His customers, many of whom became like family, appreciated the personal touch and kindness he extended to everyone who entered the shop. Andrew from Sweet Dreams Furniture Store, also on Glasgow Road, said he will be missed and he was always a nice guy. He said, I've known him for 25 years, a very nice guy, him and his wife Rajinder. He remembered everything you bought, and when you went in for something else, he still remembered and tried to give you your usual stuff. Sometimes he would bring in some homemade food. They were always a nice family with nice kids. Alan Niblett, from neighbouring Philpott Platt Niblett and White Solicitors, says Ranjit always had a smile on his face. He said, I have known Mr. Jahami since the mid-80s when he and his brother-in-law acquired the newsagent's premises on Glasgow Road. It felt like he was always present in the shop, no matter what the time and no matter the day. He always had a smile on his face and seemed to be never other than pleasant to whatever customer came through his door. He quickly became a client of our firm, and it was always a pleasure to do business with him. That report was written by Emily Moore and read by Ian McKenna.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of April. Glasgow City Council shortens firework control zone deadline. An article written by Catherine Hunter. The time allowed to apply for a firework control zone has been shortened to ensure that Glasgow City Council meets its deadline this year. A paper being presented to members of the Environment and Livable Neighbourhood Committee next week highlights that in order to prevent a repeat of last year, the local authority has adjusted its timeline for firework control zones applications to be submitted. The application window has been shortened to 4 weeks, with the process for 2025 opening last month on the 14th of March. It comes after the failure to implement the firework control zones last year were deemed regrettable and embarrassing for the City Council, which missed the deadline to introduce the legislation for Bonfire Night. The local authority apologised to Southside residents for the delay in the introduction of the fireworks ban, which would have come into effect from the 1st of November until the 10th of November last year, and would cover public and private spaces, including gardens. A total of 19 firework control zones applications were received in 2024. 2 of these were not progressed, as they were outside Glasgow City Council's boundary, and another was not progressed as it was a request to set off fireworks, which is not what the legislation is intended for. Since then, Glasgow has been working with Edinburgh City Council, which established firework control zones in Edinburgh in 4 specific areas: Niddry, Balerno, Seafield and Calton Hill, and were in effect from November the 1st to November the 10th. No arrests were made in the city as a result of any control zone breach, but there had been an increase in antisocial behaviour and disorder the day before the control zone came into force. As a result of discussions with Edinburgh City Council about lessons learned from 2024 and the plans for 2025, the time period for the Glasgow application process has been amended to 4 weeks. A consultation process started on the 18th of April and will conclude on the 13th of June. Timelines have also been adjusted to meet key deadlines earlier to ensure that the 60-day notice requirement is met and to enhance the overall efficiency and effectiveness for 2025. The Council will continue to work with local stakeholders to plan collective engagement, early intervention to create a comprehensive approach to fireworks safety and community well-being. An article written by Catherine Hunter. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of April. Glasgow Kilt Walk sees nearly 20,000 walkers raise £3 million. An article written by Amy Miles. Glasgow's Kilt Walk has raised £3 million as 19,000 walkers hit the streets to support 1,100 charities. Scotland's Kilt Walk has smashed fundraising records, raising a remarkable £53 million for over 4,000 Scottish charities over the past decade. The turnout was so huge that organisers extended the event to 2 days, making it the biggest Kilt Walk in history. Sir Tom Hunter, whose Hunter Foundation underwrites the Kilt Walk to ensure 100% of donations plus gift aid go directly to the charities, celebrated the milestone. He said, "In the 10 years that the Hunter Foundation has been involved with Kilt Walk, you and our foundation have raised an incredible £53 million for 4,000 Scottish charities. I believe that the magic of Kilt Walk is quite simple. In every community across Scotland, there are people who need a wee hand up, and there are good folks like you who get up in the morning and help them. All the Kilt Walk does is simply connect you. There isn't a prouder Scotsman on the planet than I am this morning." Russell Borry, the CEO of leading sponsor Arnold Clark, praised the walkers for their impact across Scottish communities, while television presenter Paddy McGuinness rallied the crowd at the starting line. Beneficiaries of Kilt Walk's fundraising power include Glasgow Children's Hospital Charity, which has received over £1.5 million from nearly 6,500 walkers. Chief Executive Kirsten Watson called Kilt Walk a beacon of hope for Scottish charities. Even smaller charities are feeling the difference, with a bear named Buttony raising over £11,000, helping 200 more children living with stomas. This year, walkers will also support Sir Chris Hoy's Tour de Four campaign, raising funds for 5 cancer charities following the Olympian's Stage 4 prostate cancer diagnosis. An article written by Amy Miles. Glasgow Times on Monday the 28th of April. Lifestyle. Calls for the Irish rapper's kneecap to be axed from Transmit 2025. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Calls are being made for Irish rapper's kneecap to be axed from Transmit 2025. It comes after videos emerged on Friday of the group urging fans to kill your local MP. Clips from a London gig in 2023 have also resurfaced, showing one of the trio claiming the only good Tory is a dead Tory. It follows the murders of Tory MP Sir David Amess and Labour's Joe Cox. The trio are set to perform at the Glasgow Green Festival on Friday, the 11th of July. However, Stephen Kerr, Central Scotland Tory MSP, says that the group should be banned from the upcoming summer event, as reported in the Scottish Sun. Mr Kerr added, "Glorifying the murder of elected representatives is not edgy or rebellious, it's criminal incitement to violence. Sir David Amess and Joe Cox were murdered for doing their jobs. No civilised society can tolerate this kind of poison." Yet, unbelievably, the organisers in Glasgow still intend to give these extremists a global platform. They should immediately reconsider. Similarly, MSP Annie Wells said, "Tensions already run high over the nature and many of their lyrics and political messaging. The last thing we need is an incident kicking off in response to their views." A Police Scotland spokesperson said, "We've been working closely with partners over several months to maximise the safety of everyone who's attending Transmit, and will continue to work with them throughout the event. An appropriate policing plan is in place to support the event." Transmit organisers DF Concerts and Kneecaps Management have both been contacted for comment. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times on Monday the 28th of April. Lifestyle. A new play to follow Giovanni Pascoli and Robert Burns in the afterlife. An exclusive article written by Morgan Carmichael. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if Scotland's most popular poet found himself in the afterlife with a renowned Italian writer? A new production, The Badly Behaved Poets Society, has answered that unlikely question. Written by Hilda De Felice and starring Lorenzo Novani and Mark Coleman, the play follows Giovanni Placido Agostino Pascoli, played by Mr. Coleman, as he arrives in the afterlife and is intercepted by Robert Burns, played by Mr. Novani. Burns gives Pascoli the offer of either staying where they are and writing poetry forever, or going through a nearby door where they could end up in heaven, purgatory, or even hell. Speaking on the production, which was inspired by Dante's Inferno, Lorenzo told the Glasgow Times, "The play is so fun and we're really enjoying rehearsing it. The beauty of it is the different personalities and poetry styles of both Burns and Pascoli. It makes for conflict and humour. It's quirky." The idea for the play came after Lorenzo was invited to Barga in Tuscany last year. Lorenzo joins the list of Scottish-Italian celebrities like Paolo Nutini and Lewis Capaldi, who both have roots in Barga. He said, "Barga has a Scottish festival every year to celebrate the relationship and the connection of the two places." Lorenzo went on to say that when at the festival last year he met the Lord Provost of Glasgow, Jacqueline McLaren, who was on a visiting delegation. The Lord Provost mentioned to Lorenzo that a symbolic way to commemorate the connections between Scotland and Barga would be to do a play about Burns and Pascoli. It comes after the Lord Provost welcomed Mayor Campari of Barga to Glasgow in 2023, where a new friendship agreement was discussed. Mayor Campari is set to return to Glasgow this year for the city's 850th birthday celebrations. The Lord Provost said, "Both Burns and Pascoli are renowned national figures in their respective literary movements that continue to inspire and resonate with people both in their native countries and around the world. I'm excited to see how Lorenzo and Hilda have entwined the poets' lives and worked to celebrate this legacy and the coming together of our cultures in a modern context." The sold-out play will take place at the City Chambers on the 6th of May. "I'm so delighted that it's sold out," Lorenzo said. "Selling out a show is always an afterthought because the first thing is just to write it, but this sold out in 48 hours. However, Lorenzo is looking at putting on a few shows of the production in September. An exclusive article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of April. More parking control zones to come for Glasgow this year. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Plans for new controlled parking zones across areas of Glasgow are going ahead this year. New zones in the east, south, north and west are to be progressed this financial year and more again next year. It means that the streets in the 12 communities will be subject to parking charges and residents will need permits if they want to park on the street close to their home. The future Parking Controls programme will add another 12 zones to the 24 that are currently in place. The expansion plan was first announced in early 2023, but it's not yet been implemented. An update to the city's parking strategy included plans for the zones to be progressed. Currently, zones are in the city centre and extending outwards in streets where space is limited to deter commuter parking in residential streets or by people from one area parking in another for free. The new proposed zones move the controls even further outwards, covering more of the city streets. The council expects the statutory processes for Battlefield, Broomhill and Thornwood, Denniston, Kirklee, Sighthill, Shawlands and Strathbungo will take place this financial year 2025 to 2026. Another 5 will be taken forward in the following year 2026 to 2027. These areas are Barras South Extension, Govan Hill, Langside, New Gorbals and Hutchison Town and Pollokshields. Some are at a more advanced stage than others. A report states the parking-controlled area for Sighthill design has been finalised, with letters to be issued to properties within the boundary by the end of April. Additionally, the designs for Broomhill and Thornwood and Kirklee are due to be finalised and be ready to be publicised in the third quarter of this year. Finally, surveys across Shawlands, Strathbungo, Battlefield, Pollokshields, Langside and Govan Hill are currently being procured. An article written by Stuart Patterson.
This is a column taken from the opinion pages of the Glasgow Times, published on Monday, the 28th of April. It's written by Mike Daly. It's time for the single transferable vote in Holyrood. After 26 years, is it time to update the additional members system for Scottish parliamentary elections? We have 129 members of the Scottish Parliament, of which 73 are elected on a first-past-the-post constituency basis, while 56 are elected on a regional basis. Scotland has 8 regional constituencies that each return 7 MSPs, but it operates on a closed-list system, which means that political parties choose the ranking of who becomes an MSP. Critics argue this is a less democratic form of proportional representation than the single transferable vote, which we now use for all council elections in Scotland. With this system, the voter gets to choose their candidates from an open list by ranking them in order of preference. To be fair, it can still be gamed by parties who can restrict their number of candidates in a multi-member ward to effectively decide who's more likely to be elected. But at least the voter gets to choose which candidate to vote for. The additional members system was introduced using the D'Hondt system at the inception of the new Scottish Parliament, which was also introduced for European Parliament elections in 1999. It's not perfect, and it arguably favours political parties over more diverse independent candidates. If we consider how the additional members system has operated in Scotland over the last quarter of a century, I'd argue it has enabled a tiny elite of those who control political parties to decide who gets elected. Ultimately, the additional members system has helped facilitate a new political class in Scotland, who owe their career to loyalty to the party, as against loyalty to the electorate. The incentive is to toe the leadership's line, to be guaranteed a seat for life by running for a constituency, and being near the top of the regional list at the same time. Is this belt and braces approach healthy for democracy? Surely the country needs a mix of people with different life experiences and skills? How can elected members be fully accountable to voters if they owe everything to their party's ranking on the list? We also have the rather invidious spectacle of many former MPs rejected by the electorate in Scotland under the first-past-the-post system, looking for seats under the additional members system at next year's Holyrood elections. Where is the choice for voters under the additional members system, with its closed list picked by parties? Besides local elections in Scotland, the single transferable vote is used in all elections in Northern Ireland, other than in those for MPs. The single transferable vote is used in all elections in the Irish Republic, Malta, the Australian Senate, in some state and local elections in Australia, and some local elections in New Zealand. This Thursday, some 1,600 local councillors will be elected in England. This will be an important weather vane for Sir Keir Starmer and his new government. The outcome may be stark because English council elections remain on a first-past-the-post system. In 2023, English council elections saw some parties winning 90% of the seats, on less than half the vote. In Tameside, Labour took 90% of the council seats, despite 48% of voters supporting their candidates. If Holyrood switched to the single transferable vote for its regional lists, it could encourage more diverse candidates and ensure greater accountability. Ultimately, it could help restore a greater trust in our political system. That was a column written by Mike Daly.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of April. Several Glasgow roads remain closed after an East End inferno. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Several Glasgow roads remain closed after a building went up in flames in the east end of the city on Sunday. A blaze broke out at Estill House on Wardy Road in Easterhouse, which was formerly a homeless shelter but is now derelict, at around 3:15 p.m. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service told the public to close all windows and doors and to avoid the area due to levels of smoke at the scene. Police officers confirmed that there are no reports of any injuries. It's been confirmed that the fire was brought under control at around 8 p.m. on Sunday evening. However, Wardy Road from Bogbane Road to Baldinny Road and Shandwick Street from Bogbane Road to Kildamorey Road remain closed. It comes as the fire service remains on site to deal with the aftermath of the incident, according to Glasgow City Council. The roads will reopen once the fire service deems it safe to do so. In the meantime, drivers are advised to seek an alternative route, if possible. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of April. Visa rules leave Glasgow's Ukrainian refugees unemployable. An exclusive article written by Donald Erskine. A couple who settled in Glasgow after fleeing war-torn Ukraine say that they feel unemployable as they struggle to secure jobs. Oleksiy Kolyuk, who's 31, and his wife Anna Bohuslavska, who's also 31, came to Scotland when Russia invaded their home near Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. The couple, who live in Pollack, have spoken of the struggle to find permanent work. They face a similar situation to many Ukrainians who came to Scotland after the war began in 2022 and are now seeing their initial visas expire. To stay longer, they're applying under the Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme, which lets them live, work and study in the UK for another 18 months, but it doesn't offer a path to stay permanently. This situation has left many struggling to secure long-term employment, as the restrictions render them unemployable. Oleksiy said, "When the government announced the visa extension, it didn't change much for us. We feel discriminated against compared to other refugees. We also feel unwelcome, as if we don't deserve the chance to stay, despite working, paying taxes, renting or paying a mortgage. We know people who want to start businesses here too, even students who don't have enough time to complete their education." Software engineer Oleksiy was told that he wouldn't be able to proceed with his application for a job recently, as the company considers him only available for the short term. Anna, who's a videographer, has been actively looking for work for the past year and a half, but says it's been hard due to the temporary visas. Having now settled in Glasgow's south side, however, they've developed a love for the city. Oleksiy said, "The people were incredibly kind when we came here. Locals did whatever they could to help, and charities stepped in with essentials like clothes and toiletries. Food banks were also a great help. We really enjoy Glasgow, especially the abundance of green spaces and the fantastic museums." In a survey conducted among Ukrainian displaced people in early December of last year by the Ukraine Collective, 57.5% stated that the visa uncertainty negatively impacts their ability to find or retain employment. Ola Maksumiak, an advisor on matters of people displaced from Ukraine in Scotland, said, "Many face rejections even at the interview stage. If their visa is set to expire soon, securing a permanent contract, undergoing training or advancing in their profession becomes nearly impossible. It leaves them virtually unemployable on a permanent basis. The constant fear of losing their job and housing has left people emotionally exhausted. This is particularly painful for single parents who are trying to provide stability for their children. Many are forced to accept temporary jobs far below their qualifications, serving only as a means of earning some income." Irina Lutsushin is a qualified lawyer with over 8 years of experience and has been looking for a job for the past 2.5 years. The 32-year-old who settled in Coatbridge said, "In November of last year I attended an interview for a legal secretary position at a small law firm in Glasgow. The interview went well, and towards the end my potential employer inquired about my eligibility to work in the UK and the duration of my visa. I'm currently allowed to work until July this year and can only apply for a visa extension no earlier than 28 days before its expiration. After I explained this, they said that while I was a strong candidate for the role, they required assurance that I could work on a permanent basis. This assurance is something that some refugees are unable to provide with the current visa restrictions. Scottish Greens Justice, Equalities, Social Justice and Human Rights spokesperson Maggie Chapman MSP said, "Ukrainian refugees deserve to be here. Offering no permanent option doesn't just threaten their stability, but is an insult to the lives that they've built here. This short-term extension scheme is a needless barrier, offering no security. It will punish people who are already facing a great humanitarian crisis. The war is still not over. They still need somewhere out of the war zone to call home." If Sir Keir Starmer wants to show that he isn't just Donald Trump's doormat and really does support Ukraine, he'll offer some stability to its refugees with the opportunity to make their UK home permanent. A Scottish Government spokesperson said, "Immigration is a reserved matter for the UK Government. While the Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme will give displaced people some stability, what has been announced falls short of what Ukrainians need to overcome the barriers created by short-term visas. We support an approach that offers Ukrainians the ability to make informed choices about their future and would encourage them to apply for the extension scheme before their existing visa expires." The Home Office refused to comment on the issue. Ola added, "The situation requires not short-term fixes, but a clear and long-term strategy. Without immediate action, many skilled and hard-working individuals risk being pushed into unemployment and uncertainty, undermining the very purpose of the humanitarian response." An exclusive article written by Donald Erskine.
From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 29th of April 2025. From the news section. Boy fed paint from ceiling after going to bed hungry in Glasgow. And this article was written by Connor Gordon. A young boy was fed paint from a ceiling after he was forced to go to bed hungry. The victim suffered at the hands of Yvonne Keenan, 56, at her home in Glasgow's Maryhill. The boy, aged between 5 and 8, was also made to eat cat food while in the care of Keenan. 3 other children were severely punished by Keenan, which included being made to face a wall for long periods of time. Keenan's victims, who are now all adults, have received justice after she pleaded guilty to cruel and unnatural treatment of children. The 4 charges at Glasgow Sheriff Court span between 1994 and March 2001. The court heard that the boy and a girl, now aged 32, were frequently not fed by Keenan and sent to bed hungry. Prosecutor Sean Docherty said the girl remembers the boy crying because he was so hungry and she did not know what to do. She decided to scrape paint off the ceiling from the top bunk and fed it to him. She described this as an act of desperation to help him as she did not know what else to do. On another occasion, the girl recalled the boy pushing a button in the kitchen which was not allowed. Mr. Docherty added, as a consequence, Keenan forced the boy to eat cat food which was lying in the kitchen. The girl also recalled being made to stand in the dark kitchen overnight and was too scared to move. Keenan was violent towards her, which included being dragged off a bed, which caused her head to strike a radiator. She further remembered being physically force-fed cereal and milk. Mr. Docherty said, to this day she cannot consume milk due to this experience. Another girl, now aged 38, stated Keenan was violent towards her, which included shaking and throwing her around. She was also slapped in the face when Keenan overheard a telephone call which referenced alcohol. A boy, now aged 36, claimed disciplinarian Keenan would poke him on the body if he did not return home from school in a set time. He was also made to stand and stare at a wall for hours, as well as be without dinner. Lindsay McQuaid, defending, told the court that her client was a first-time offender. Sentence was deferred pending background reports until next month by Sheriff Michael Hanlon. He said, "Your motion for bail will be allowed, but be in no doubt of the seriousness of the offences you pled guilty to. I will be looking at all options." And that article was by Connor Gordon. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 29th of April 2025, from the news section. Council slammed over repairs at flat near Glasgow. And this article was written by Gillian McPherson. A resident has been left at his wit's end due to water ingress at his flat when it rains heavily, a problem which has been going on for 15 years. William Robertson is a homeowner in a top-floor flat in Barrhead, but East Renfrewshire Council is the factor for the blocks as it rents out 2 of the flats below. He has set out at the local authority for failing to properly rectify the issue affecting his kitchen and back bedroom. At one point, he claims water even came out of the sockets in the kitchen after snow had melted on the roof. The 46-year-old said, "There's been so much water. Recently, there was torrential rain and it was coming down sideways and running down my kitchen walls again. I've just had a torrid time. I've not been able to redecorate because of the state of the roof and the walls. I just feel as if no matter what they come out and do, repairs, patch-up jobs, I'm getting left and it's never, ever going to be fixed. It's as though because I'm a homeowner, the council are not really bothered because obviously it's not their property, but they are still responsible for the roof." William moved into the property in November 2021, but a record he has obtained from the council of historical repairs at the property shows the problem has been ongoing since 2010, the same year it is understood the roof was redone. According to this document, water ingress in the flat has been reported and repairs logged upwards of 20 times over the years. Despite the numerous repairs, the ingress continues, he explained. The kitchen was put in not long before I moved in, but as soon as this problem gets fixed, I'll probably have to rip out the cupboards. In my back room, the ceiling is all marked where the water has come through. William pays a factor fee of around £200 every year to the council, plus a quarter of the cost of any repairs in the block. A £2,500 repair was carried out last September by a company sent out by the council. This month, the local authority sent him an invoice for £754 for the works, but he's refusing to pay this as the problem continues to blight his property. He's now in touch with one of his local councillors about the issue. The company the council sent out to do the £2,500 repair told me the roof was never done right in the first place in 2010, so my argument to the factoring team is, why are you not going to whoever did the roof in 2010 with all these problems, added William. I don't think I should be paying the £754 as this has been a historical issue for 15 years and the works done in September have clearly not fixed the water ingress issue. It happened again a few weeks ago, and since then I've had a tile sorted and a mushroom vent added to the roof. I'm refusing to pay and they have put the bill on hold while it's under dispute. It's a joke now that I'm being left to put up with this. An East Renfrewshire Council spokesperson said, "We are currently investigating this matter and, in line with our complaints procedures, will respond to the homeowner in due course." And this article was written by Gillian McPherson. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 29th of April 2025. From the news section. Plans to construct battery storage facility in East Kilbride approved. And this article was written by Nicole Mitchell. Plans to build a new battery energy store system, BESS, near East Kilbride have been approved. Renewable Energy Storage Specialist has received planning permission for a new grid-scale 50 megawatt stroke 100 megawatt BESS on land near the East Kilbride substation on Cairnmuir Road. When completed, it will connect to this substation and collect, store and discharge renewably generated energy onto the grid as and when it is needed across the UK. The development will consist of 16 battery container units plus associated infrastructure, including transformers and a substation building. It will be screened from all directions with native planting and will be operational for a period of 40 years, after which time the land will be restored to its original condition. Andrew Philpott, Chief Development Officer at Apatura, said battery storage facilities like our planned development at East Kilbride underpin the ongoing expansion of the UK's renewable energy generation capability. They make a significant contribution to enhancing UK grid security and grid stability and are integral to enabling our country to decarbonise its energy system and its economy and achieve its net zero targets. He continued, battery storage will also help to deliver stable energy prices, leading to reduced bills for households and businesses. It will contribute to greater energy security and independence for the UK in the future. Construction of the project will provide a significant boost to the local East Kilbride economy. It will directly create jobs with the construction, operational and decommissioning phases of the project, and also indirectly in the supply chain and related services. The decision notice granting planning permission concluded that there would be no significant long-term impacts on the environmental quality of the Green Belt, and that the project would make a contribution towards tackling climate change, mitigation and adaptation, and would be a positive response to the global climate emergency and nature crisis. A BESS is an advanced technology system designed to store electrical energy during periods of high generation and low demand, which can be exported back into the grid network during periods of high demand. And this article was written by Nicole Mitchell. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 29th of April 2025, from the news section. Police remain at flats in Glasgow's Sandwood Road after death. And this article was written by Ava White. Police remain at a block of flats in Glasgow's south side following the death of a woman. Officers are in attendance at an address on Sandwood Road in Pennylee. It comes after cops received reports of the death of a 58-year-old woman at a property in the area at around 4:40 p.m. on Monday, April the 28th. The force revealed they are treating the death as unexplained and inquiries are ongoing. Images taken on Tuesday morning show 3 police vehicles stationed outside of flats on this road. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, around 4:40 p.m. on Monday, April the 28th, 2025, we were made aware of the death of a 58-year-old woman at a property on Sandwood Road, Glasgow. The death is being treated as unexplained and inquiries are ongoing. And this article was by Ava White, read by me, Caroline. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 29th of April 2025. From the lifestyle section. Glasgow pupil flies flag for Scotland at Global Fashion Contest. And this article was written by Anne Fotheringham. A Glasgow teenager dazzled judges at the World Finals of a famous sustainable fashion competition. Ella Sharp, a pupil at Hillhead High in the West End, won Junk Couture's London category, which includes Scottish contestants, with a stunning dress made from discarded race paraphernalia such as foil blankets and running vest numbers. Recently, the talented teenager joined fellow pupils from Milan, New York, Paris, Abu Dhabi and Dublin at the glittering finale in Ireland. Outfits on the catwalk included a dress made from seat belts, salvaged from junkyards, a design involving old life jackets, and the eventual winner, aquacultural Dublin pupil Clodagh Ramsey's dress made from 2,000 waste mussel shells. Ella's fabulous creation, the Joni, was inspired by the 40th anniversary of women's Olympic marathon participation and trailblazer Joan Benoit, who proved women belong in elite sport. Keen runner Ella, who is now hoping to study fashion design, explained, "Being a passionate designer and athlete, I decided to fuse my love of fashion and running. Athletic events promote physical and mental well-being, but leave a legacy of unwanted paraphernalia like foil blankets and race numbers. I repurposed discarded materials to create an outfit which both celebrates achievement and promotes sustainability. The Joni comprises medals fashioned from foil blankets for the bodice and a grand skirt created from shredded race numbers." Ella adds, "Accessories include jewellery crafted from safety pins and vintage replica trainers as worn by Jen Benoit 40 years ago. I experimented with weaving, crocheting and origami to create this imaginative piece. The Joni is a symbol of my own athletic journey, but also conveys how fashion can provide powerful political narratives by representing female strength and resilience by contrasting past female repression." Ella said the experience of making it to the final in Dublin was incredible. "I spent several unforgettable days attending workshops and talks and exploring the city," she said. "Throughout my adventures, I met the most inspiring and talented individuals, each sharing my passion for unconventional, junk-focused creativity. Every finalist was deeply invested in their project, and each garment told a unique story. Ella is hoping to move to London to study, where she wants to specialise in women's knitwear, bringing a Scottish flair to the world of high-end fashion. I'm working on making bags using dead stock fabric from across Scotland to create durable and stylish pieces," she said. "The Joni taught me invaluable lessons about my working style and the problem-solving required in this field of design. I'm deeply passionate about celebrating the beauty of Scottish culture." Carrying the Scottish flag at the Junk Couture final was a moment of immense pride, and I want to continue drawing inspiration from my heritage as I develop my work. And this article was written by Joanne Fotheringham. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 29th of April 2025, from the Lifestyle section. Kneecap statement after Swinney calls for Trio to be axed from Transmit. And this article was written by Rosie Lewis. Kneecap have issued a statement after First Minister John Swinney said the Trio should be axed from Transmit. The group said condemnation from Downing Street and Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is an effort to derail the real conversation about Gaza. Badenoch called for a member of the group to be prosecuted after a video emerged from a November 2023 gig appearing to show him saying, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory, kill your local MP." Keir Starmer's official spokesman said the Prime Minister believes the comments were completely unacceptable and condemns them in the strongest possible terms. In a statement posted on X, the Belfast group said they reject any suggestion that we would seek to incite violence against any MP or individual. They said a video extract had been deliberately taken out of context and was being exploited and weaponised. The band has previously claimed they are facing a coordinated smear campaign after speaking out about the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. The statement said, "Establishment figures desperate to silence us have combed through hundreds of hours of footage and interviews, extracting a handful of words from months or years ago to manufacture moral hysteria. This distortion is not only absurd, it is a transparent effort to derail the real conversation." The band said they have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah and condemned all attacks on civilians, apologising to the families of murdered MPs Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, saying, "We never intended to cause you hurt." Scotland Yard is looking into the incident, along with another concert from November 2024, in which a member of the band appeared to shout, "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah," groups which are banned as terrorist organisations in the UK. Badenoch says kneecaps anti-British hatred has no place in our society and that it is good the police are looking into the allegation, adding, "Kneecaps' glorification of terrorism and anti-British hatred has no place in our society. After the murder of Sir David Amess, this demands prosecution." Conservative MP Sir David was stabbed to death while meeting constituents in Leigh-on-Sea, Essex in 2021. His daughter, Katie Amess, told BBC's Good Morning Ulster, "It is just beyond belief that human beings would speak like that in this day and age, and it is extremely dangerous." She said, "To say kill anybody, what on earth are they thinking?" Warning, there are absolute nutters who could try to act upon the comments allegedly made by Kneecap. She called on the group to apologise, saying she was absolutely gobsmacked at the stupidity of somebody or a group of people being in the public eye and saying such dangerous, violent rhetoric. The Glasgow Times previously reported Swinney said the band had crossed the line, with comments apparently backing Hamas and calling for the death of MPs, and that it would be unacceptable for them to perform at Transmit in Glasgow in July. Speaking at the Scottish Trade Union Congress, he told media, "The language that you have put to me is completely and utterly unacceptable. There is no way that is acceptable, it's beyond the pale." I think it makes it incredibly difficult for a band like Kneecap to perform at Transmit because I think they have crossed a line. It would be unacceptable for me for the band to perform on such a stage. He continued, "I'm not very familiar with this group, but what I've heard of their comments I find completely and utterly unacceptable, so I cannot see how they can perform at Transmit. We don't run the Transmit Festival, but my opinion, for what it's worth, is that these comments just are unacceptable. They cause division in our society, they cause a lot of unease, and I think Transmit will want to respond to that." Badenoch blocked a government grant to the bilingual Belfast group while she was business secretary. But in November last year, Kneecap won a discrimination challenge over the decision to refuse them a £14,250 funding award after the UK government conceded it was unlawful. Downing Street indicated there would be no further public funds directed towards Kneecap. "I don't think organisations such as this should be receiving taxpayers' money," the Prime Minister's spokesman said. However, the Tory leader criticised the Labour government's approach towards the case prior to the emergence of the video. Badenoch said during a phone-in on LBC I thought, well, that's not what we should be exporting. I'm not giving them any money. And they took me to court, said they were going to sue me, sue the government for not giving them money to go and export. Now the government doesn't owe anybody money. This is a nice thing that the Conservative government was doing, giving out grants. So the court case has been lodged, and in between the court and in between the court case starting and finishing, this snap election was called, so I didn't get to see it through. Labour come in, and Johnny Reynolds, the new Business and Trade Secretary, just gives them the money and says, we're not fighting this court case. They're going to let them have the money. And I just thought, this is extraordinary. This is how money is wasted across the board in government. Speaking about kneecap, she said, but also when you look at some of the people who were jailed for sending tweets after the Southport killings, and I'm not justifying what they said, but this is a much worse incident and I think should face the full force of the law. Meanwhile, Labour MP David Taylor has written to the organisers of the Glastonbury Festival urging them to remove kneecap from this year's lineup. In a letter addressed to founder Sir Michael Eavis and posted on X, the Hemel Hempstead MP said, by hosting such a group, Glastonbury Festival risks undermining its proud tradition of promoting peace, unity and social responsibility. The band are listed to play on the Westholt stage on the Saturday of the June festival. Counter-terrorism police are assessing footage reportedly from the November 2024 gig in London's Kentish Town Forum and the November 2023 concert. On Sunday, the Metropolitan Police spokesman said, we were made aware of a video on April the 22nd, believed to be from an event in November 2024, and it has been referred to the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit for assessment and to determine whether any further police investigation may be required. We have also been made aware of another video believed to be from an event in November 2023. He also said the force are assessing both to determine whether further police investigation is required. The Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit is a national counter-terrorism policing unit based within the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command, which is dedicated to identifying terrorist and extremist material online. Police will carry out an investigation if the material breaches the law. And this article was written by Rosie Lewis.
From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 30th of April 2025, from the news section. 6.3 million homes in UK currently at serious risk of floods. Article written by Matthew Evans. 6.3 million homes and properties in the UK are currently at risk of flooding, according to a damning report. This is set to rise to 8 million by 2050. Following this, the government has been slammed for failing to prepare the UK for tomorrow's disasters of floods, heatwaves, droughts and wildfires, its climate advisers have warned. The Independent Advisory Climate Change Committee also raised fears that spending needed to protect communities and critical services, such as the NHS, from worsening weather extremes could be cut in the summer spending review. Early deaths from heatwaves are projected to rise from the 3,000 seen in 2022's record hot summer to 10,000 a year by mid-century. The committee warned there had been no improvements since its last assessment in 2023 and accused the new government of failing to deliver the change in approach needed. Already, half the UK's prime agricultural farmland is at risk of flooding, which is set to worsen, while schools, hospitals and care homes are among the most vulnerable to impacts such as heat waves, the committee warned. The committee's chairwoman, Baroness Brown, pointed to 2022's heat wave, when temperatures topped 40 degrees C for the first time ever, which, in addition to thousands of deaths, put huge pressure on emergency services and halted operations in hospitals. All of this, and we are seeing no increase in action, Baroness Brown said. The committee's assessment looked at 46 areas where adaptation needed to be delivered and found only good progress in plans and policies for 3, making rail and strategic road networks reliable and ensuring risks were properly disclosed and managed by financial institutions. Not a single measure, from ensuring resilience in nature and farmland to water, food and energy supplies, was making good progress, with 12 areas rated insufficient. The committee warned delivery had actually worsened in the water sector because of a lack of credible plans to cut leaks and reduce water demand in the face of worsening drought risk. The committee said the previous government's action plan fell short of preparing the UK for the climate change already being experienced, let alone the future, but found little evidence of change now, despite Labour's manifesto promising to improve resilience and preparation for the country. Baroness Brown said, "People are worrying about the impacts of extreme weather, worrying about food prices. People are worried about what's going to happen to their vulnerable friends and relatives. Despite all this, we are seeing no such change in activity from the new government, despite the fact that it's clear to my committee, it's increasingly clear to the public, that the current approach to adaptation policy just isn't working. Our message is the country is at risk, people are at risk, and there's not enough being done." She added, "We can't wait to take action. This is not tomorrow's problem, it's today's problem, and if we don't do something about it, it will become tomorrow's disaster." A wide array of measures are needed, from building new resilient hospitals and retrofitting existing ones with air conditioning and green roofs for cooling, to ensuring people know what to do in a heatwave, such as closing windows and curtains in the morning. Standards for new homes need to prevent overheating and ensure they are not at risk of flooding, while agricultural subsidies, the 25-year farming plan and food strategy should all support efforts to adapt nature and food production to the changing climate. Baroness Brown also suggested the level of personal protective equipment, PPE, still being used post-COVID needed to be reviewed to reduce costs and plastic waste and allow staff to work more comfortably in the heat. But the committee raised concerns that the government had said last autumn that there was a need to review flood defence spending in light of financial pressures, raising fears it signalled cuts in the spending review. Baroness Brown said, "We are seriously concerned that resilience and climate adaptation may be cut in the spending review. Government needs to recognise this is not a future problem, it's today's problem," she urged. Campaigners described the report as a wake-up call for government, with WWF's head of climate policy, Bella O'Dowd, saying, "The evidence is clear. Action on climate unlocks economic opportunities, improves our health and saves lives. Farmers, communities and businesses can't afford any more delays." And Dr. Friederich Otto from Imperial College London, an expert on climate's role in extreme weather, said, "Climate change is already hurting the UK. More intense heat waves and floods are damaging infrastructure, reducing worker productivity, wiping out crops and putting more pressure on the NHS. Given the government's current focus on growth, it is hard to believe there has not been a renewed focus on adaptation, which could save the UK billions of pounds in avoided losses." A government spokesperson said they would carefully consider the findings of the committee's report. They added, "Alongside our transition to become a clean energy superpower and accelerating towards net zero, the government is taking robust action to prepare for the impacts of a changing climate. We are investing a record £2.65 billion to repair and build flood defences, protecting tens of thousands of homes and businesses and helping local communities become more resilient to the effects of climate change, such as overheating and drought." That article was written by Matthew Evans and read to you by Elizabeth. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 30th of April 2025, from the news section. Asda chicken recall as do not eat warning issued to shoppers. Article written by Joshua Searle. Asda shoppers have been issued a do not eat warning after the supermarket giant was forced to issue a recall on some of its chicken. The supermarket has recalled its hot and spicy chicken breast slices because of an incorrect use-by date on the label. Asda has apologised to customers affected by the recall, which covers the hot and spicy chicken breast slices with a use-by date of May 30th. A spokesman for the Food Standards Agency, FSA, has told warned customers who have purchased the affected chicken not to eat it. They said, "Asda is recalling the above product. Point-of-sale notices will be displayed in all retail stores that are selling this product. These notices explain to customers why the product is being recalled and tell them what to do if they have bought the product. If you have bought the above product, do not eat it. Instead, return it to your nearest store for a refund. For further information, contact Asda's Customer Relations line on 0800 952 0101. An Asda spokesman added, "If you have purchased Asda hot and spicy chicken breast slices with a use-by date of May 30th, please bring it back to your nearest store where you will be given a full refund. You do not need your receipt. We are very sorry for any inconvenience caused." What is a product recall? If there is a problem with a food product that means it should not be sold, then it might be withdrawn, taken off the shelves, or recalled when customers are asked to return the product. The FSA issues product withdrawal information notices and product recall information notices to let consumers and local authorities know about problems associated with food. In some cases, a food alert for action is issued. This provides local authorities with details of specific actions to be taken on behalf of consumers. That article was written by Joshua Searle and read to you by Elizabeth. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 30th of April 2025, from the news section. The unusual way Glasgow pupils are celebrating city's 850th birthday. Article written by Anne Fotheringham. Glasgow school children are kicking off their celebrations of the city's 850th anniversary in an unusual way. Pupils at Tinto Primary on the south side helped to unveil a special lunch menu for the occasion, complete with chicken and halal chicken, breaded fish, bell peppers and steamed broccoli, all to represent the bird that never flew, the fish that never swam, the bell that never rang, and the tree that never grew from the city's coat of arms. As part of a week-long Glasgow 850 Schools Festival, every primary pupil will also receive a collection of souvenir badges to commemorate 850 years since Glasgow became a borough of the barony in 1175. The pink birthday badges, adorned with icons from the city's coat of arms and other symbols that represent Glasgow themes, landmarks and institutions, will be given to 40,000 primary school children. The designs include symbols of the city's achievements and sources of pride, including the Barrowland Ballroom Star, the Finnieston Crane, and the Duke of Wellington's Cone, with a Glasgow version for Gaelic school pupils. The festival is part of a year-long programme across nursery, primary and secondary schools, which hopes to inspire the city's young people to think about the role they can play over the next 50 years. Glasgow Create, Creativity and Expressive Art Transforming Education, is also inviting all primary schools to help record a special Glasgow 850 song titled It's Our Home, Glasgow. This ambitious citywide celebration will bring together 142 primary schools with teaching videos, lyrics and audio backing track packs. Children will also receive access to their own Glasgow 850 digital keepsake learning booklet, and the Physical Education, Physical Activity and School of Sport, PEPASS, Young Ambassadors Conference in August will see 250 young people come together to celebrate and learn new skills in sporting leadership. Councillor Christina Cannon, City Convener for Education and Early Years, said, "Our children and young people are the future of Glasgow, and the 850 education programme is an opportunity to engage and inspire the next generation and celebrate this landmark year with our youngest citizens. From a themed menu to bespoke interactive lessons, we are giving pupils the chance to engage with the history of our vibrant city and think about the possibilities for its future, sparking creativity, curiosity and civic pride." She added, "Parent councils are also leading the way, bringing creative Glasgow 850 twists to school events and inspiring school communities to share in the celebrations. Glasgow's 850th birthday is a milestone that belongs to everyone, and we hope to see families and pupils alike embrace the birthday celebrations. I know that our children will be wearing the commemorative badges with pride and holding on to them for many years to come." That article was written by Anne Fotheringham and read to you by Elizabeth. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 30th of April 2025, from the news section. Burning baffles and drinking pubs dry. How Glasgow celebrated VE Day. Article written by Barbara McLean, Glasgow City Archives. Almost 80 years ago to the day, Glasgow Corporation was preparing to host a public celebration of the end of the Second World War in Europe. After almost 6 years of worldwide warfare, peace in Europe heralded a return to ordinary life and the lifting of wartime restrictions. It was an occasion which merited thanksgiving, and it was the Lord Provost's office which was responsible for arranging Glasgow's civic celebration in George Square. The victory announcement had come on May 7th, 1945. People rejoiced to hear it on the radio shortly before 8 p.m. that evening. It had been a long-expected and much delayed announcement. Glaswegians had been gathering in George Square throughout the day. They were joined by press photographers, hoping to catch an image of the crowds bathed in the floodlights and festoon lighting yet to be switched on. Blazing lights after the blackout years were much anticipated. Blazing bonfires too. These appeared across the city, on vacant pieces of ground as well as on the streets themselves. Police put a stop to this latter practice and enlisted the National Fire Service to extinguish the fires and prevent damage to the street surfaces. The doors of air raid shelters were ripped off in the relentless quest for fuel. Other potent symbols of wartime were also targeted. A total of 258 baffle walls in the East End were pushed over. Baffle walls were brick structures built at close mouths to protect the building from the effects of a bomb blast. However, they changed the familiar layout of the streets and were a hazard themselves during blackout conditions. Many people were injured by walking straight into them at full speed. It wasn't surprising that Glaswegians were glad to see an end to them. The following day, May 8th, was VE Victory in Europe Day. There was a holiday atmosphere in Glasgow. Many buildings were bedecked with flags, crowds thronged the streets, and once more people were drawn to George Square. This time the authorities had laid on entertainment for the large crowd. Broadcast music and pipe bands accompanied singing and dancing among those gathered. George Square was not particularly suited for such a large crowd, but the police did their best to help people enjoy themselves. A member of the mounted police cleared a space for people to dance and ate some reel. Everywhere people danced, in the streets and in the city's dance halls, the opening hours of which had been extended along with those of other places of entertainment. Sadly, some celebrations were cut short. Certain licensed premises had to close early due to their stocks of liquor being exhausted by early evening. It was clear that the authorities had been expecting somewhat riotous celebrations from Glaswegians. However, the Chief Constable of Glasgow Police, in his report to the Lord Provost, declared that the citizens of Glasgow conducted themselves in a most exemplary and seemly manner throughout. Wednesday, May 9th, 1945, saw George Square being converged upon once again, this time for the civic ceremony at 3 p.m. The event was planned meticulously, and the process chronicled in a file of paperwork now held as part of the collections in the city archives. While people assembled in the square to await the beginning of proceedings, selections by the Band of the Cameronians were played. The Lord Provost was joined by representatives from the Army, Navy and RAF, as well as various civic dignitaries, including the Deacon Convener of the Trades of Glasgow, the Town Clerk and the City Chamberlain. As part of the ceremony, Lord Provost James Welsh addressed the crowd. First and foremost, he paid tribute to the 3 fighting services and their auxiliaries. However, he also looked to acknowledge those who had worked to protect Glasgow's citizens and who had attempted to mitigate war damage on the home front. These included the Civil Defence Department of Glasgow Corporation, the police, the National Fire Service, the Observer Corps and the voluntary services. Welsh's remarks acknowledged the role Glasgow's industry had played in producing vital ships and munitions for the war effort. However, his speech also held a note of caution as he asked jubilant citizens to remember that our kith and kin are still enduring the hardships and dangers of war in the East. That article was written by Barbara McLean of Glasgow City Archives and read to you by Elizabeth.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.